Welcome to the C3 Church Global Podcast. My name is Phil Hubbard, Global Communications Manager. This week, we are going to be talking all things event planning, specifically as they regard to Christmas and Easter, which we know are coming up quickly in our church calendars. We're joined by some great experts, you could call them, from around the C3 Church Global Movement, event managers and administrators from around our different regions who've been part of some significant events in the life of our movement. We're going to be talking all things just ideas and creativity and giving some skills and tips around planning great church events. This is actually episode 2 of a 2-part series on event planning. So if you missed episode 1, jump back into the episode list in either Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, and you can watch episode 1. But here is episode 2. Enjoy. The last thing I'd love to cover for us is Christmas and Easter. These are the 2 big events for all churches around the world. For us in C3 is definitely these 2 events in the calendar of the Christian calendar, big for outreach and wanting these events to be a win. We're wanting to see people come into church. We're wanting to see people find community and ultimately find Jesus and find faith and to make steps in their faith. So I guess I just want to go around, and there might be ideas or creative ideas that you've had in the past that work well, or some stuff that you're planning for this year, just to inspire our churches around the world with Christmas coming up and starting to plan for Easter next year. So I don't know, Jacob, do you want to jump in? Are there any kind of stuff that you've seen done really well for either of these 2 events at SYD?
Yeah, so I think one thing that we always need to think about when we're planning is just like the who. And one thing that we've realized is that kids are the who. Kids bring parents to church, realistically. Right. If we can have kids getting excited and wanting to come to an event at church, they're going to have to get dropped off by the parents, and usually the parents come because of the kids. With that said, we also just need to be mindful. What are people doing on like Christmas Day? That's why our Christmas Day services are usually, if we have them at all, usually pretty short. So I think just thinking logistically as well, like what is the average family doing? So for us, like the Good Friday service, which is like a 1-hour service, that's short and punchy, creative moment, really nice like time together. But it's not a massive time of like at the end. We save that for our Easter Sunday service, where we just go like chocolate crazy message, short, like a punchy service, really inspirational, great moment where we have lots of stories as well, because we just know there's so many guests in that room. Also for Easter, really accommodating to families as well, are just like, listen, I've heard so many people like, Santa shouldn't be at Christmas church events, but I say, well, we are competing with them all.
Come on.
So like, I'm actually all good for Santa to be there. I'm all good for gifts to be there, because
with a good Santa.
Yeah, a good Santa.
Yeah, like the best Santa.
Just super fat and not creepy.
That's right.
So that I just think that they're the things that we do have to look at what we are. Again, we do have competitors when it comes to not just church, but they can do a Christmas like in so many different other places. They can go sing carols at so many different places. So how are we going to compete in order to let them choose that the church is going to be the best place for them to celebrate Christmas? So I'm always just thinking about the kids, thinking about like free things, fun things, and festive things. They're the 3 things I'm just trying to think about when we are going into like Super Bowl time of our big events.
That's
How
right.
can we make them bigger, better, and just really encourage people to bring people to it?
Jacob, always here for the kids.
So good. And Chrissy, I know that. Yeah, Chrissy, I know you're on maternity leave at the moment and you've got beautiful little Arlo to take care of. But in the terms of planning with C3 Toronto and coming up for Christmas and Easter, how's that go for you guys? And have you started planning for that yet, or what does that look like?
Yeah, we normally start over the summer. So that's the time that we would start planning, unless we had like a real like inspired idea before then. One year we've done a few different things that have worked really well. Or served us really well. One of them was that we did a short film for Easter, which was kind of based on like, it was like a true story with a question mark that was based on the time between the death and resurrection of Jesus. And that was a really easy invite for people because they're like, come and see a movie like this Easter.
Yeah.
And then we also did like the kids factor is huge. So that helps the adults, and maybe the single people in our church. But then we also did like a massive Easter egg hunt. So we kind of could get to like, really speak to two different audiences. So we're making like, it's really thinking through how do we make this an easy invite for someone? One year for Christmas, we basically did a whole experience. We rented a house and we did a whole creative experience that like had, storytelling, carolers in every room, had like all different creative elements. Our Pastor Sam, was preaching a message from there. And so it ended up like we used it online. Actually, it happened during COVID, that COVID happened, sorry. And then luckily we had this film that we could use. So it was perfect. But we're always thinking, right, how do we make this really visitor friendly for someone, because a lot of people are being dragged to church by families. Like they're coming with their family because it's what you do. So we're like, how do we speak to that person? And it's definitely through story or a creative way to tell the same story. If it's not someone's personal like experience. And then it's always like, how do we give this the community family vibe that we know to be true of our church? And so there's always a food element. There's always something, because food, like the table, is what brings people together. So how do we bring that into it? That's what we'd be thinking about for Christmas. I agree with Jacob. We're always thinking, especially in Toronto, about what are people doing? Because Toronto's like not a crazy amount of people actually are from Toronto. They're often from like, other places. And so they go home to their family for Christmas. So we're thinking, well, how do we get them to stay, or like what are our service times around that, so that we really maximize the time that people are in the city. And so it is thinking through like those elements. Is don't work against it. A couple of years ago, we were in set up and pack down venues for 10 years of our church's life, which meant that getting a rental on Christmas Eve was impossible. And so we just lent into it, and we advertised, well, we're going to do Christmas Eve. And it worked. It worked while we didn't have a venue. It was awesome. And we got all the people that had plans on Christmas Eve that did their own plans. And you've got to get creative around, well, just because we can't do a Christmas Eve service, well, what can we do? And so it's working around like those parameters and thinking, well, there's always something. So what does that look like for your context? Because it doesn't have to be what everyone else is doing. Like you could try something different.
Yeah, great. And what about it? What about Atlanta, Sarah? What's been happening down there?
Yeah, I think, same for us, especially with Christmas, I would say anything that we can do that people are excited to share on their own, like socials and stuff, like when you talk about, Chrissy talking about, kind of their social strategy, I just find if people are excited enough to put their, kids' Santa photos, or, we'll rent like a Christmas train and a snow machine, because we don't have real snow here at Christmas. It's bubbles. That's it. But it's, again, it's like, what are we competing with, right? So generally in December, we do something every week. And again, it's focused at the kids. It doesn't have to be a massive thing. We've done different things throughout the years. We've done, one massive Sunday where Santa's here and we rent all these things. And we just found, it was actually for us better to just kind of divide that out and make it kind of 3 mini parties, mini Christmas focused Sundays, because then there were 3 opportunities for people to invite people along, people to say, look what my church is doing, and I think too, especially for our context and, a little bit of what you guys are saying, like, I probably passed 15 churches from my house to my church. Our context is there are churches everywhere. And so we so often, have people who are coming in who maybe don't have a problem with God, but have a real problem with church. And so what are we going to do, in those moments we've got maybe one shot, we've got one service, one day. This is the only time of the year they're coming. And so just keeping that in our minds. But anything we can do to get people excited enough to post it on their social media, I think then their friends are going, oh, wait, your church is doing that. Wow, I want to come be a part of that. That's going to be generally more effective than our paid marketing, our announcements, our strategies, all of that. So one year we even did like 25 days of Christmas, and we had a calendar, and every day was something, and it was all very simple, but every day was something. And so we were encouraging people to, take cookies to their neighbors, or write a card to, local community, people in the community officers, things like that. So we've done kind of the gamut, but we always have a great Santa, like an awesome Santa, and, make sure that people get their family photos. I think that's a really big one for Christmas and Easter, is giving people lots of great backgrounds. Because, like if you have kids, I have a lot of them, and you got them dressed and you got there on time and you looked presentable, like that is not happening every day. That is happening like a few times a year, and families really want to capture that. Yeah. So we actually don't do an Easter egg hunt on Easter anymore, because kids got really messy, and then their family, their mom wanted the photo. So we actually do the Easter egg hunt now. We do a glow in the dark Easter egg hunt on Good Friday, which has also bumped our Good Friday attendance, because that would be, not necessarily as well attended as an Easter Sunday. And so we've tried to make it feel like a whole weekend, like one cohesive weekend, not two separate events. So we actually do Easter egg hunt on Good Friday. We do it glow in the dark. It is pure manic chaos, but the kids absolutely love it. All the eggs glow. They get all the candy. It's sugar craziness. And then Sunday morning is a great kids program, but they're not getting messy because they're not diving for eggs. And so then the family, sticks around. There's all these different photo opportunities. So again, just meeting families where they are, which sometimes people are coming to church on Easter to get their photo and say that they were at church on Easter. And if that's the reason that they're coming in, so be it, but that's not going to be the reason they leave, because they're, in Jesus' name, going to encounter the presence of God in our services as well. But let's also just meet people where they are and not over spiritualize. Let's give them all the backgrounds, all the family fun, and also, an opportunity to have a touch from God that will transform their lives, hopefully.
Beautiful.
So Chrissy, do you remember the time at SYD when we
did the helicopter drop?
Yeah, so we just tried to do something different one year. We're like, let's get a helicopter, fill it with Easter eggs, and like just let it rain. And we did that. What could go wrong with chocolate solid Easter eggs falling like 100 meters, landing on children? Yeah, it was a really good learning.
It definitely
we've never done it
had
again.
had a wider reach than what we anticipated. We didn't really think about the wind or anything like that. So
we should have given them helmets. But,
so people were concussed.
It does make for a great story and memory. Look at that. We're still talking about it 10 years later.
That's right. The power of events.
So good.
Exactly. The power of events.
I'm just thinking about something we have done here locally, right? So you mentioned the events like Christmas and Easter. And I think you could actually, if you plan your yearly things you want to discuss as a church, like we have done like a month before Christmas or Easter, we do like more a month where we focus more on outreach. And it's not so much to equipment the people of your church to how can I invite people? How can I reach people? How can I take that step and get over the threshold of how can I get my family along to church? And it's actually helping them to equip them to so it's not all about advertising. It's not all about the other stuff. It's actually your congregation itself that learns how to bring people into church. And the nice thing of it, you can then really, like on the back of that, you can actually go into more like a journey with them. We're having after Christmas have more events like alpha courses, stuff like that. So you can actually build like a whole period around an event really to actually take that impact and get people into your church. And then it's not just the event, but it's like a whole church period where you can focus on reaching out to people, getting people to Christ. and into your church.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
I think that's
Yeah,
really
it's
great,
awesome.
Hans. One thing that we've done that at each one of our big services, and I think this is a really good takeaway, is that it is a great time to showcase what we as the church can do.
Oh, I
So
was
in
just gonna say that.
Easter and Christmas,
You
we
stole it.
always just showcase like things like we gave out like something like 1,000 hampers at Christmas. And so our story for that Sunday was a single woman with 3 kids shared about just how much the hamper last year changed her life, literally,
So
for
good.
Christmas.
Yeah.
And then Easter, we talk about how we bought a car for a struggling family. So, like, I think it's a great time to really platform the church because it gets knocked a lot for putting these types of events on and being like, it's all about Jesus, blah, blah, blah. But it's also like, for us, it's a great opportunity to really showcase the church to our community as well, rather
Very
than
good.
just being about us, come to our event. It's us
So true.
giving as well. So I think that's really a great time and an opportunity
Yeah,
to
that's really
showcase
good.
what we as a
Beautiful.
church can
Yeah.
do.
Phil, one last thing.
Yeah, you're going to add to that, Chrissy?
Oh, I was just going to say one of the best parts about being part of a global family is that we have family all over the world. So if you're a
Right.
pastor or if you're an event person, reach out to someone and get exposure. That's something that our
Absolutely.
Pastor Sam, is like has really drilled into us as a staff team, is that we do exposure calls, and it's always with someone that's doing something better than we are. Or
Right.
that is further ahead, not necessarily better, but is further ahead of the journey. And it's to be able to get ideas just like this. Like I just picked up the kids idea from Sarah that I'm like, I'm taking that idea. The stickers on the back of kids, that's awesome. But it's to be able to get those ideas and get exposure to something that you don't necessarily have in your own context. And so reach out, because like I know that we're all available, but so are like so many other incredible people
Totally.
that we have in our C3 family, and they're all available at our fingertips. And all we need to do is reach out, and then we can get connected, and we're not doing this alone. We're not reaching people alone. So so let's connect and work together.
Couldn't have said it better, Chrissy. And look, and that's, this has been such a brilliant conversation, and thank you all for being part of it. And look, these podcasts are all about that. This is all about equipping and empowering our family around the world, and hearing from voices of people who are doing this in churches and in local church contexts all around the world, in different areas and different contexts and different sizes, and with staff and no staff and volunteers, and so thank you so much for being part of this. And yeah, just to echo that to anybody listening, if you're looking for more wisdom or more clarity or some more training and equipping around this, please email us, hello@c3churchglobal.com. We'd love to hear your feedback, and if you have any ideas for these specific podcasts, which we're calling equip sessions, which are practical training and equipping for our teams and our pastors all around the world. So this has been such a great conversation around events and event planning, and we'll look to do some more of these into the future. So please reach out. But thank you for joining us today on C3 Church Global podcast, and we'll see you next time.